Alright, alright. Um, this is not gonna be a video like I have recently been making, just about like my problems in home life. No, I've done enough of that for now. Just gonna do like another weird thought video. I haven't done one of these in a while. My old ones were very sloppy. I was young. Um, I don't know what I think of myself if I watch this again. I probably have good opinions. I don't know. Very humble thing to say, but I keep thinking about the Truman Show. Great way to start off. This is definitely something worth watching, of course. But my thought is, I don't know. The whole point of the Truman Show is to show that it's an inhumane thing to do, just making someone's entire life seem like it's fake. But I had a bunch of thoughts on like how it could have gone wrong. I'm going to take Squid Game as a source, one of my cited sources, for my thoughts on this movie. It's I always thought like, first off, just something I want to say. They speak English in the Truman Show, and like the reason for that, of course, just being that like it was filmed in America. The directors and the actors and the writers, they all spoke English. That's just like the baseline reason for why it's in English. But the thing is, I feel like it could have only worked in English because the whole point of the Truman Show is that like he's like the only one real in the show. Everyone else isn't. The only time when you get someone that's not acting in the show, this is supposed to be like new stuff to everyone. They've never seen it before, even though now we've got a bunch of reality TV. But that's also doing incredibly well in this country. The whole point was it was supposed to be something new, and you were seeing someone real on the TV. So this is supposed to be like revolutionary stuff, and so it gets like world famous. Everyone around the world watches this movie. Since it's live and it just literally shows his life in real time, I don't think they're translating the show. I think they're just broadcasting it worldwide. I feel like the reason it could only work if they were speaking English is because like English is like the most spoken language in the world, or like that's not true, or it's like the most learned language in the world, something like that. Since it's so common, it's like incredibly common for someone to either have it as a first language or learn it as a second language. And then like that might be the only thing they learn past that because they kind of need it. Because of that, you can make a movie in English and most people watching are going to understand it in just English. They won't need any sort of translation for it. That's why I think it could have only worked if it was produced by Americans, if like the director was an American, which he was. So but how I'm gonna bring this topic about how it had to be made into America, I'm gonna talk about Squid Game real quick. When I first watched Squid Game, I don't know, I think it was sort of a common thing for a lot of people to think this was like a worldwide process, that like they were holding the games in like every country, especially the capitalist ones and like the ones that were doing badly. That's where like it's everywhere. That's what I'm trying to say. That was not my initial thought. I didn't think they did it like everywhere. It's already bad enough that like so many people each year just disappear during like when the Squid Games are held. And like they're smart that they're doing it on like people in debt. They're doing it on people that won't as much be missed or noticed if they were gone. I think that's like the point. But it's still like already too much that like so many people, 456 people, just disappear every single year. So I was thinking, no way they did this like worldwide. They did reveal at the end of season 3 that it is a worldwide thing, but my point still stands that I'm about to make. What I was thinking was like, how did this start in Korea? Because like the writer, he's Korean. He's from South Korea. Of course, it's gonna be there. But I was still thinking like, imagining this is a real thing that happened. Because that's the whole point of a story. You imagine if it happened. It's acting as if it's all real. How is Korea the place to do this? What? How not someplace bigger where this is like more possible? Like in the U.S. where you get a lot of people in debt or in poverty. And a lot of people that, like, the richest people would definitely be able to pull off something like this financially. How did it not happen there? And so I was thinking about capitalism. That's the whole thing about the show. It's about, like, it's anti-capitalist, and it's just that. It's anti-capitalist. I guess you could also say it's, like, against gambling. But that's part of the capitalism in it. So like I was thinking like for someone to be able to like you get a lot of people in. Here's what I was thinking. How did someone in Korea have enough to like, or like even a group of people in Korea have enough to create the games and do them every year? And like, how did they come up with it first in a place like that? Probably the same way the director came up with the idea and made the show. That would, if this guy could come up with it, then someone could have definitely thought of it to actually make it a reality, as they did in the show. It's the whole thing. That's just how ideas are made. So like, but of course, it's always something like, in capitalism, the big guys, the very powerful ones, they're rewarded for being able to maintain their high income, while everyone at the bottom just kind of gets nothing more. They don't get anything for where they are. You could kind of argue that people in poverty can get things that are like necessities, like they could live off food stamps and stuff like that. But for the most part, they're not getting much. Sorry if my voice sounds weird. I don't know, I don't think I'm sick, but so if this were done like in American capitalism, it's just like the big guys, they keep doing well, the guys at the bottom, they don't do as well. So that means they have like a sense of power because of that. And so a lot of rich people will genuinely feel powerful and try to act on that stuff and feel like they're more worthy of life and luxury than all the people at the bottom. And it's a type of person like that that would have enough money to accomplish Squid Games and fully fund it and make it a real thing, and also be able to mentally go through with doing the games. But the same thing's happening in Korea. That's the whole point. Korea is also like South Korea is also very capitalist. The show literally shows it. They are in capitalism, and so many people have like debt and are in poverty. That's the whole point of the show. So of course, if it can happen in the U.S., it can happen in South Korea. All the same. That's why. Now let's go back on that topic I talked about. The Truman Show had to be made by Americans. It had to be made with like English speakers. That was the whole thing. And America would be like the only place where you would find like a large amount of directors who would have like enough money to do very big things. Like you could get a director who's doing sort of well and become like very powerful and a lot of money by making like a very successful world famous film. You could definitely get that in South Korea. Could you get a director that's doing well enough to like fund the creation of an entire island and set and that whole entire sort of thing? I don't know. If you remember watching the Truman Show, you'll see that it's more than just that island they're on. That island is big enough to have like a whole giant town fit to like have a town's worth of people and houses and buildings, all of that. outside of that though, there was like an entire realistic ocean that was like responsible for like forging the death of Truman's father. And there's like a bridge from their island that goes out to what's supposed to look like mainland, like probably the rest of America or something, or another island. They have a whole other island. How are you gonna fund that whole thing? You need someone who can fund the creation of the island, who can pay for all the actors to stay on there, can like afford all the equipment to keep it going, and like that whole entire other building the director and all the writers and editors are working at, and still somehow be able to maintain keeping it on the air, like making sure it actually still continues showing on TV. Like, how are you gonna have that much money? You would need, so that would require like a lot of money. If someone had that much money though, that's one of the big guys then. That's one of the people that's like incredibly rich, has a lot of power, and would probably feel he's more worthy of life and luxury than everyone at the bottom. That's the type of person who is able to mentally go through with doing the Truman Show and actually come up with such a thing as that. That's how that happened in the Truman Show. That's like the whole idea. The director had enough to make it happen, and he was corrupt enough to go through with making it happen, and so it just happened. You can't say like, oh, how could he possibly do that? He's rich. That's why. That's greedy. He doesn't care for other people. Simple as that. Look at my father, man. I'm living in poverty, and that guy, I think he's rich. I don't know. I don't know how much he has. Enough to afford a lot of luxury, that's what. So. But it's all off of greed. He does some of the work. He gets a lot of workers, though. They've all quit now. But, so. That's just a little analysis thing I wanted to talk about. But something else I wanted to think about. Let's imagine Truman never escaped. Let's imagine he didn't realize what was going on. He never caught on that everything was fake. We see the movie right at the very start of things happening. If this movie was made more like nowadays, in like the modern day, half the movie would be spent introducing Truman, watch him slowly and subtly go insane, but nothing happens. Nothing interesting happens for the first half of the movie. He just lives his life. And then the light falls from the sky. That's how it would be paced in real life, in like the modern day. But the actual movie starts off right at the beginning. Light falls from the sky. Now he's already catching on to things. And that's like, it's paced fairly well, I'd say. I feel like the entire thing, he becomes more and more aware until he fully starts to get a grasp of what's happening. Even if he doesn't fully understand it, he's still getting like a really big grasp on what's happening. Let's imagine he didn't have that moment. Let's imagine none of that happened. The radio never malfunctioned. He didn't see the set behind the elevator, no light from the sky. None of it. What would happen with Truman? They script like his entire life, which is weird because the whole point of him is that he is unscripted, which he kind of is. He does a lot of things on his own that like aren't planned, and that's the whole point. But like a lot of it is scripted for him to live through. So like he lives a boring life. It's probably how he's been like conditioned into just having that boring office cubicle job and being in a marriage that he really just tolerates. He didn't know that person. She just randomly showed up because she was there for the script. She just randomly showed up during his high school years, and it just happened. A real person would not go through with stuff like this. He doesn't complain about the office job, doesn't find it boring. He tolerates Meryl. how does any of that happen? A real person wouldn't do that. I guess he's just too used to this stuff. But imagining if this was more now, if he knew slightly more about what it was like on the outside world, just a little bit, and it was like during a bit more recent, not even like now, the 2020s. It could have happened in like the 2000s, and still all sorts of stuff could have happened. Truman could have been way different. Like in high school, he knows, he he discovers some sorts of music, he likes listening to it. In high school, he just starts a death metal band with his classmates. Or like suddenly he discovers he's like trans in middle school or something. Something weird could have happened through the entire thing. Because that's just how humans are. They're just meant to be unexpected. That's the whole charm of the show. That's what it's like repeating the entire time. What if something unexpected like that happened? What would they do? How would they manage to stop that? I don't think you could possibly condition someone well enough into living to normalcy and be able to just not experience any of those unexpected events in someone's life. It's like a lot of things come naturally. You pay too close attention to another gender, suddenly you're like, you got dysmorphia or something. These aren't things that you can just stop through immense planning. In the movie, it shows that the director had plans. Truman has a child, but then he leaves the marriage for like a co-worker. I don't know how they would have convinced the audience to go along with that. I really don't understand that. But it's weird that that's like in the actual movie. You don't see that in like deleted scenes. No, that's just in scenes in the actual movie. It's weird. How would that, like, I don't think any of that would be good, because like he only like, it doesn't seem like real connection he has with his wife. So like if he had a child, that'd just be way worse. Imagine he gets to that point, he's in this weird, awkward marriage, he's got this boring, stressful office job, and now he's got a crying baby. Imagine how stressed he would be. And they don't even think about that, because they don't think about Truman, they don't think about his drama. They're all in like some sort of power trip when they run the show. Even some of the actors. It's like, imagine, what are they supposed to do in the case that it's all too much for Truman and suddenly he's like an alcoholic or he becomes an absent father? What do they do in that case? People stop watching after that point. Like, oh, he was always such a goofy little character. Because he was the only person that was real on the show. I love watching this. Now he's just a depressed loner. I don't want to watch this. Like, it doesn't make sense. I feel like people are meant to be too expressive for them to just go along with everything that happens. I don't know how any of this would have worked. Although I guess a lot of people are kind of very normal, because like all the people I'm friends with are like the types of people I would see in like a Pinterest comment section. Like, I want to be friends with that person. I want a friend group like this. Where do I find these types of people? That's all the people I like talk to. That's all the people I hang out with. That's all they are. And those are interesting people. They go on their own path. And then I meet a lot of people. I'm never like actually friends with these people, but like I meet a lot of people that are like so boring. They live high to middle class in my school. They're mostly blonde hair, blue eyes, but they live in like a house that's like fully white in each room, painted. Oh, their bedroom is like twice the size of this. What you're seeing past that camera, there was like 2 feet more behind you. This is the whole room you're seeing right here. I don't got a lot. There's people who have like twice the size of this, and that's so weird to me. I know this room is small. It feels small, but I can't imagine someone living in any way different. It's so weird to imagine someone not struggling. I can't imagine that. It's like, you can say like, oh, you got a bunch of things in your room though. What do you mean struggling? You got a whole amp here. You got a bass off camera. That thing took a year to get. They saved up for a whole year to get that. Past that, I didn't get anything else as a gift on my birthday. Hardly anything. It was all a bunch of stuff that are nowhere near that price. It seems like 400. They took a year to try and get that. My mother took a year to get that. My father, I don't think he paid anything for it. No, I asked about that. He didn't. So, he just like to take credit. That was the whole thing. But those types of people seem very normal, very boring. They listen to something on the radio and suddenly that's like their favorite song, but they're not like an avid music listener. It's just whenever they feel like listening to music, it's just one of those basic songs that just came out that's famous. Like, oh yeah, I like some underground stuff. You ever heard of this one artist, Billie Eilish? Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of Taylor Swift. I'm so unique, guys. I feel like those are the types. Those people go way further into normalcy than the Truman Show ever tried. But like, they seem so weird to me. I don't understand those types of people. They got nothing interesting going on with them. Those are also the types of people that have good relationships with their families. But I don't know. I don't understand those types of people. I don't understand rich people, white people, and the rest. Those are probably the types of people, if they were raised exactly as they are right now, but were in the Truman Show or a situation like that, they would never realize. I don't think they ever would. You know, me, I will avidly think about, like, what if in, like, another universe, all of this stuff is fake, in another universe I'm just a character in someone's, like, storybook they're reading, or a character in the show. You know how many times I look into the fake camera, look to the fourth wall? This guy. Just in case, you know. I'm not crazy, but like, I think about like, I don't know, it's all sorts of stuff like that. Like, I already think about like if something's fake or not. I don't think it is. Maybe it's just because of how different I am from the Truman Show. You can't control me if I grew up on this thing. Wrapping chickens. You cannot control something like that. Like if I have a phone at an early age, the kind of stuff that I will be doing on here or learning from here is not the type of stuff you would want when you're directing the Truman Show. Like, hold on. It was just... Imagine how annoying it would be and like how much the ratings would go down if Truman would unironically listen to something like... Oh. Something like, imagine he's like a chord or a Slipknot fan. He listens to this on full blast on like a radio. I don't listen to that. But like, if I was on the trip, anything could happen. I could have gone that direction. Could have gone in a bunch of directions. I could have been a skateboarder at an early age. Not even kidding. I used to have one, I think. Didn't know how to use it though. I might try again. But yeah. But if any of those things did happen, what would the showrunners do? Would they just cancel it? What would happen if they canceled it though? Because these seem like hard things to just steer away from with like a simple script change. So like, they cancel it. What happens to Truman? Those actors had lives before going on the show. They might not be used to them anymore because like they do say that is just their life now. But you take them out of the island and let them go into normal life because there's no way they can continue surviving on that fake island. What happens to Truman? You can't bring him to the real world and know what happened. I asked my mother about this. She said that they would just kind of leave him on the island to die. I don't think so. Because like when the audience was watching Truman try to escape, they were rooting for him. There was like a deep connection to him because of the fact he was the only one that was real on there. No one's gonna have like, you'll always see a person like, oh, my favorite character is the side character in the show. I love that one. I'm really guilty of this. Like, my favorite character in Maze World Gumball, Darwin. It's a very common answer. But it's mostly just because he's almost the main character, but he's not quite. He's just the side character. I love characters like that for some reason. You're not gonna see that with the Truman Show. Everyone has a connection to Truman through the screen. So they're all like rooting for him. If the show gets canceled, the actors are all out, but no one knows what happened to Truman, people are gonna riot at that. They're gonna be asking what happened to him. Something horrible is gonna go down. Suddenly the entire like TV industry is like up in flames. Something that very well could happen now, honestly. You see a lot of protests like that. Just for like a bunch of things. So like, I feel like that wouldn't go well. I don't think they would just leave him there to die. What would they do with him? What would happen? And what happened to all the actors after Truman did escape? I'm sure they left the island, they go back to normal life. How do people treat them then? I'm sure a lot of people passing them on the street just like, oh, hey, that was that one actor. Oh, kind of cool. Those are the people that were fine with the show. And then you see the people that were like, as you saw in like that one poster in one of the scenes, like, in frame number 234. See on like one of the posters, there was like a rally that was gonna happen to free Truman. Like people were protesting this stuff. Those types of people see all the actors on the street. It's not gonna end well for those actors. I think taking the actors' lives away and making them kind of dependent on the show working is probably around just as inhumane as Truman being raised not knowing what's real. Although I think that is probably more inhumane. They all had a life before it. They know what it's like out there, even if they're not used to it. And like Truman is equally not as used to it when he goes back out to the real world. But at least they knew some things about it. Truman knew nothing. It's horrible stuff. Anyways, sorry if there's like any weird sounds that happened that like showed up in this room. That's my bad. Yeah, that's all.